The diner smelled of bacon grease and fresh coffee. Waitresses in pastel uniforms darted between booths, balancing plates, while conversations overlapped into a warm hum. The evening rush had just started, and the chatter filled the little roadside diner like background music. For most, it was just another ordinary night. But in the far corner, it was anything but ordinary. A young girl sat by herself at a table, her small hands gripping a menu she wasn't even reading. Her wheelchair was tucked awkwardly under the table, making her feel even more out of place. She was maybe 12 years old, with thin arms, tired eyes, and a quiet presence that seemed almost invisible to the world. Almost invisible except to the group of teenage boys at the next booth. They snickered, nudged each other, and whispered cruel words just loud enough for her to hear. They mimicked the way she sat, the way her hands shook slightly when she reached for her straw. One boy even let out a loud, mocking laugh and said, "Careful, don't roll away." Their laughter cut through the diner, harsh and ugly. The little girl's face turned crimson. She lowered her head, wishing she could vanish, wishing the floor would just open up and swallow her whole. Her eyes welled with tears, but she didn't dare cry in front of them. Her name was Lily. And in that moment, she felt utterly alone. The bullies laughed louder, feeding off her silence. Their cruelty bounced off the walls of the diner, ignored by most customers who chose to look away, too uncomfortable to interfere. And then everything changed. The diner door swung open with a crash. The sound of heavy boots hitting the floor echoed like thunder. A dozen figures stepped inside, their presence instantly shifting the air. Black leather jackets, patches stitched with names like Steel Wings and Iron Brotherhood, tattoos curling down thick arms, heavy boots, and the unmistakable scent of engine oil and road dust. They were bikers. The chatter of the diner faded to silence. Forks clinked softly against plates as customers froze mid-bite. Some looked nervous. Others looked curious. And the bullies, their laughter faltered, eyes darting toward the newcomers with unease. At the head of the group was a tall man with a salt and pepper beard, his presence commanding but not loud. His jacket bore a single word across the back, Hawk. Hawk's gaze swept the diner, sharp and piercing. He wasn't looking for trouble, but he knew trouble when he saw it. His eyes landed on Lily. He saw the way she hunched over, shrinking in on herself, the tears she was fighting back. And he saw the boys, their smug grins fading under his stare. Something inside Hawk stirred. He remembered. Years ago, he'd had a little sister, Emily, who wore a leg brace because of a childhood illness. He remembered how kids mocked her, how they whispered behind her back, how she'd cried when she thought no one could hear. He had been too young then to protect her. Too small. Too powerless. But now? Now he wasn't powerless. Hawk walked forward slowly, each step deliberate. The floor seemed to vibrate under his boots. The boys stiffened, suddenly very aware of how small they looked compared to the towering biker. "You think that's funny?" Hawk's voice was low, gravelly, steady. The boys exchanged nervous glances. "We were just joking, man," one mumbled. "Joking?" Hawk leaned closer, his eyes burning into theirs. "Does it look like she's laughing?" Silence. The boys swallowed hard, their faces pale. Behind Hawk, the other bikers fanned out, leather and steel filling the diner like an unspoken wall of strength. The boys' courage evaporated. With muttered excuses and embarrassed stammers, they slid out of the booth and bolted for the door, the sound of their sneakers squeaking on the tile. The diner exhaled as the door slammed shut behind them. All eyes turned back to Hawk. But he wasn't looking at the boys anymore. He turned toward Lily. His expression softened, the hard lines of his face gentling as he crouched down to her level. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked. Lily blinked, unsure if she could even speak. Then, slowly, she nodded. A small, hesitant smile tugged at her lips. And in that moment, something shifted. The bikers could have walked away right then, satisfied that they had scared off a few bullies. But Hawk knew better. He knew that standing up for someone in one moment wasn't enough. Real strength was staying. Real strength was making sure she felt valued, not just defended. Mind if we sit with you? Hawk asked. Lily's eyes widened. She wasn't used to being asked that question. She wasn't used to anyone wanting to sit with her at all. She nodded, still shy, still unsure. And so the toughest-looking group in the diner slid into booths around her. Their tattoos and leather jackets contrasted sharply with the fragile girl in the wheelchair, but somehow, it looked right. The diner buzzed with shock. Waitresses whispered behind the counter. Customers stole glances, unable to believe what they were seeing. The bikers treated Lily like family. They asked her name, asked about school, about her favorite hobbies. Hawk noticed her eyes light up when she talked about drawing. I love to draw, she admitted softly. But, people don't really notice my work. Hawk reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn leather notebook. The pages were filled with sketches from long nights on the road, motorcycles, sunsets, old diners just like this one. He slid it across the table. Draw something in this, he said. Make your mark. That way, wherever we ride, a piece of you rides with us. Lily gasped, her hands trembling as she clutched the notebook. Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness this time, but from something she hadn't felt in a long time, belonging. But this was just the beginning. Lily's mother, who had been sitting quietly at another table, finally found her voice. You don't understand, she said softly. She's been through so much already. The doctors say her condition will only get worse as she grows. Every day is a battle. And kids at school don't make it any easier. The bikers fell silent, listening. Hawk's jaw tightened. He hated the thought of Lily feeling like she had to fight her battles alone. From that night on, Hawk made a promise. From now on, Lily's got us, he declared. She's family. Anytime you need us, school, home, hospital, we'll be there. And he meant it. The challenges weren't over. The bullies at school didn't vanish overnight. They whispered behind her back. They laughed in the hallways. They blocked her path, hoping to intimidate her. Lily still felt small some days, still felt like giving up. But she wasn't alone anymore. One morning, the roar of motorcycles echoed down her street. The sound grew louder until a dozen bikes pulled up in front of her school. Students froze. Teachers stared. And then Lily rolled through the gates, flanked by the bikers in leather jackets. They walked her into the building like a royal escort. The bullies shrank back, their whispers silenced by the thunder of engines that still echoed in their ears. From that day forward, no one dared to mock her again. But it wasn't just about protection. The bikers encouraged Lily to share her art. They took her drawings and made patches for their jackets. They tattooed her designs on their arms. They carried her sketches across states, showing them off at every stop. See this? Hawk would say, tapping the eagle inked on his shoulder. A little girl drew this. Strongest artist I know. Lily's confidence grew. She smiled more. She laughed louder. She started to believe in herself. Of course, there were still dark days. Days when the pain was too much. Days when hospital visits stretched into weeks. Days when she cried in her mother's arms, asking why life had to be so unfair. But whenever she felt herself slipping into despair, she opened Hawk's notebook. She saw not just her own drawings, but the notes the bikers had written for her. Keep writing, little sister. You're tougher than steel. Family forever. Those words carried her through the storms. Years passed. On her graduation day, Lily sat proudly in her wheelchair, her cap perched slightly askew, the leather notebook resting on her lap. When it was her turn to speak, she wheeled herself onto the stage. I used to believe being different meant I didn't belong, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. But then, strangers showed me that family isn't always about blood. It's about love, loyalty, and standing up for each other. They gave me strength when I thought I had none. They showed me that even broken wings can fly. The crowd rose to their feet, cheering and clapping through tears. And in the back, the roar of motorcycles filled the air, drowning out every other sound. That night, they returned to the diner where it had all begun. The same waitresses. The same tables. But everything was different now. Lily rolled in, surrounded by her biker family. The same people who once whispered about them now smiled, some even clapping as they entered. The bullies were long gone, forgotten. What remained was a lesson. That kindness, no matter how rough the hands that carry it, has the power to change lives. And sometimes, the strongest heroes don't wear capes. They wear leather. They ride steel horses. And they carry hearts big enough to protect the most fragile souls. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments, what does kindness mean to you? And if you believe the world needs more stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Be Kind Always. Together, we can ride with kindness every single day.